What up, peeps? So I saw a few movies recently, so I'm gonna do a quick chat about them. The first one I saw was The Northman, and it was pretty good, sometimes pretty great. This is by director Robert Eggers, the same director of The Witch from 2016, which I enjoyed, and The Lighthouse from 2019, which I really enjoyed, and I recommend both films overall. I think it's safe to say that Eggers' skills as a director continue to improve despite only making 3 movies, including this one, and I'm always looking forward to how he continues to grow. On a technical level, the cinematography is pretty outstanding. A lot of beautiful imagery and symbolism that really absorbs the eyes in terms of the cinematography. There are some truly incredible shots here, a few in the third act being my favorite. The wide shots are gorgeous, presenting some overwhelmingly jaw-dropping scenery. Some of the camera work is very creative and fluid. Sometimes I wish it was a little more frequent, and the lighting felt very realistic while still artistically elegant and precise. The music is probably my favorite of any movie this year. Seeing this on the big screen is definitely a must, appropriately used to enhance many scenes and moments, really fitting with each scene that it's needed in. Score wise, this is probably my favorite out of all of Eggers' films. The film is both gritty and beautiful. Eggers is pretty consistent with this film's really making the period come to life with the aesthetics that include costume design and set design. The action scenes are well shot, not too over choreographed, finding that proper balance that really elaborates the brutality of the fights. And lastly, the performances from everyone, including the child actors, were great. Claes Bang probably gave my favorite performance in the film. It did feel like sometimes big name actors were being casted for the sake of them being big names, like York. She was in it and it felt like just York just being in it instead of playing a character that actually has some sort of impact on the story. But eventually it was less distracting as the film went on. The story was probably the weakest element of the film. Not to say that it was a bad story all the way through, but the first 45 minutes had me worried that the rest of this 2.5-hour movie was going to go exactly where films like this are going to go. And while it still kind of did, the story and narrative structure after the first 45 minutes became really interesting, and I was actually more into it than I expected. This is something that might not bother me on the second watch, which is a positive. Overall, this was a good film. It's no Witch or Lighthouse, but it's an ambitious passion project that is pretty refreshing, and I'm glad that I saw it, and I definitely plan on watching it again. And I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the second movie was the second Sonic the Hedgehog film / Sonic 3 / Sonic and Knuckles, and it was kind of bad, but the last 20 minutes were pretty much the highlight. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead, but this movie's writing was amazingly awful at times. I mean, there's so much time wasting, exposition, stupid plot contrivances, and a terrible middle act that had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. So insufferable and annoying and painful just to have a way to force in more screen time for the human characters, as if we haven't done this crap before. But yeah, Idris Elba was pretty good as Knuckles. I mean, he hammed it up at times, but still added some charisma and charm to the character. You can tell that he definitely is a fan of Knuckles. Sonic was much more annoying and unfunny this time. Every single joke that he had just died. Tails was Tails. I never really cared for Miles anyway, and this movie doesn't really help that. Like I said before, the last act definitely gave me some fanboy chills, but the movie feels like it was written by 3 different people, and the other 2 strategy was to run the clock out, and the third writer had the best part of the script. And I know that the rebuttal for this movie is that it's a kids movie, blah blah blah, as if a licensed film can't be good or well written, but this definitely could have used a rewrite. Overall, even though I did say it was bad, now that I think about it, it wasn't really a terrible movie. It's just the plot was incredibly dumb and made no sense, but it made up for it anyway near the end. I mean, kids will eat this up, but this movie could have been just 90 minutes instead of 2 freaking hours. So, you know, whatever. I'm just gonna give it a generous 2 out of 5 stars. And the last movie I watched was We're All Going to the World's Fair. This was directed by Jane Schoonbrun, and this was her second director and writing credit. And despite the low budget, this film is actually pretty immersive. It's strange, atmospheric, and effective at times on the senses, and it still takes place in very few locations, which is also impressive. The score by Alex G was very solid and complemented the film's personality, and the film utilizes its internet-themed style pretty strongly, more so than in another film that I can think of. The performances from the very small cast was great, and newcomer Anna Cobb giving an excellent performance is a plus. There are some moments that I found to be genuinely creepy and unexpected, and the sound design was unlike anything that I've heard in films this year so far. This is an overall creative film that takes advantage of of the budget that it has. And while this movie is pretty immersive and an overall impressive experience, I don't really feel it warrants a second watch. It's well shot in most ways, but overall the film says what it needs to say how it wants to say it and nothing more. The overall themes it explores will either resonate or outrage people. Personally, I can't really say how I feel without spoiling it, but I found this to be a pretty solid film overall, and I don't really feel the need to go back to it, but I can definitely see Jane Skolbrun growing as a strong director, and I'm very much interested in what she does next. And I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Alright peeps, see ya!